Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of the third race in the second round for the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series. Live from iRacing's virtual Watkins Glen International in Watkins Glen, New York. James Plank, the voice of Podium Esports, here alongside Kenneth Bueno, Josh Lee, Jeff McConey, and our producer, as always, Ryan Bauer. Cameras provided to us by Thuggy Beer. We've got Justin Prince down on pit road as well. And gentlemen, we go road course racing for the first time in this Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series for 2021. And this year it's a little bit different because we don't have a clear favorite in this race or the other race, which you can see on twitch.tv/podium2. Like we had last year when we went to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, and Mitchell de Jong was very clearly head and shoulders above everybody else and then went out and backed it up on the racetrack and won. Here, it's a little bit more open. So how does that change the expectations that you have coming into tonight? We'll start first with Josh Lee.
Well, I think we're gonna see some unexpected drivers running up at the front. I mean, we've seen a lot of consistent drivers through round one that bled into round number two. Specifically, Donovan Strauss comes to mind, Briar LaPrade, Cody Bias. They've all been very, very dominant and consistent, especially in the early part of round number two. But I think this is a good opportunity for the drivers that put in the laps in practice and that have that road course pedigree to fall back on, that they can get themselves up in that top 20 of the points, or maybe try and get themselves closer to that cut line so they can try for the rest of the round number two to get above that cut line and get into the contender series in the winter.
With the lack of expectations, Jeff McConey, does this race almost become a bit of a wild card? Maybe not quite the same vein as a Daytona or a Talladega, but a similar sort of idea since we don't really know what to expect?
I would say yes and no. There's definitely some drivers that are very, very good at road courses that this race is going to cater to, but this is going to especially cater to the drivers that are able to adapt and overcome to the more difficult circumstances that are thrown their way. And when you say that to me, the first name that comes to mind is Donovan Strauss. Anytime we've gone to a difficult track that's out of the ordinary, the one-offs, the Darlingtons, the Dovers, races like that, Donovan Strauss has come out strong. I would definitely keep my eyes on him. Keep your eyes on some of the drivers that are also strong on road courses. I wouldn't necessarily call it a toss-up like Daytona or Talladega, but it's definitely going to cater to certain drivers that really have their best chance here that may not be running up towards the front in other places.
So that's 2 votes for Donovan Strauss before we even take the green flag at this road course. And while we get ready for the green flag, let's take a look at Watkins Glen International and see what this track looks like from up above, courtesy of our friends at Google Earth, as we go from Homestead, Miami, where we were 2 weeks ago, where Briar LaPrade was winner in the race that we had here on twitch.tv/Podium Esports, up to the Finger Lakes region in New York and to one of the most beautiful facilities in the country, Jeff McConey.
That it is. Watkins Glen is a beautiful area of the country, a 2.45 7-turn road course, and I've heard it argued that it's even up to 10, but to each their own. You know, you have the inner loop there known as the bus stop. Some people count that as a turn, some people don't. But this track is very, very difficult to get around if you don't know what you're doing. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of work. The most important thing here is carrying a lot of speed off of turn 7 and getting a good run down into turn 1. It's so easy to get past there or to get dive bomb there and for everything to go wrong. Another key point, going into the bus stop. You have to drive it aggressively, but you can't overdrive it. It only takes one mistake here around this course for everything to get thrown out of whack. This track was opened in 1956, though. This is the short course, the cup layout known on iRacing. The race lap record, 58 seconds by Davy Jones in 1992, but that's very quick. We're going to see lap times closer to about a minute 12, minute 13 here in the trucks. Right now, your top times, though, are going to be coming in shortly as qualifying is underway.
Qualifying is indeed underway. Tonight we go for 35 laps just south of 90 miles and just shy of 140 kilometers. No quick repairs as per usual in the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series, trying to get these drivers trained for potential Coke Series berth next season. Open setups as per usual in the series, just as it is in the Coke Series, and 2 sets of tires available to drivers in the pits. Although, Jeff, this isn't really going to be a wild strategy race, I would think. As you look at the schedule, the top 70 drivers from round 1 advance into round 2, and we run 2 races every other Thursday night between twitch.tv/Buddy Esports and twitch.tv/Buddy M2. And the top 20 in points after the second round will advance into the eNASCAR Road to Pro Contender iRacing Series, which will start up later this fall. Here's a look at your point standings coming into tonight. Donovan Strauss is the only driver who's picked up a victory in both the first two races of round number 2, so he sits atop the point standings. Brian LaPrade was a winner at Homestead, Miami. He sits in second, and the other drivers up towards the front there. A lot of really talented names, Josh Lee.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the entire top 20, it's all talented names. So you look further down, Finlayson's still there. Drew Farinage is still there. Santi Tires is still there. Daniel Eberhardt, Michael Cozy Jr., Seth DeMerchant, Justin Bolton trying to get back to eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series glory. And as we take a look at these qualifying times coming in, those familiar names are also at the top of the timing sheet.
There's the back half of the top 40 headed up by Austin Yarbrough, who was victorious in Knoxville to start off this round 2 on the dirt. But other names that you would know of and other drivers who are going to try and fight their way a little bit higher up, big names are cohorts and partners in crime on the pre-race show for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. Michael Gorelli and Brandon Kittel, 29th and 30th. A little bit of work to do for them, Jeff McConey, but their berth into the Contender Series isn't out of the question yet.
It most certainly is not. You can still work your way in here. There's only a few drivers that are completely and totally eliminated, and they may not even be mathematically eliminated. They still could be away. But for the most part, your goal in every race that you're in is a top 10 finish. If you can average a top 10 finish, then you'll advance to the next series. You know, the top 20 in points go on. So if you finish top 10 each and every race, you're going to get enough points. That's just the way it's going to end up working out. So for a lot of these drivers, it's important. And James, you mentioned the strategy earlier, and that got me thinking. For most drivers, the safe call is to pit right at halfway. On lap 18 is probably when we're going to see just about everyone coming in. Give it 2-3 laps each direction where they could pit, but I'm expecting right around lap 18 that everyone comes in. However, there has been talk that you can save enough fuel to cut that pit stop out entirely. Now, you'd have to save quite a bit. You'd have to be in 3rd and 4th gear all the way around. You'd have to be saving a lot of fuel, clutching through corners, but if you can save that pit stop, that's easily 30-40 seconds that you can have on the field. Now, are you going to sacrifice that 30 or 40 seconds, though, to save enough fuel? That's the question. I don't know if we'll see anyone try it, but people have been talking about it. People may have been making it work, and if anyone can do it on the surface, it's going to be these drivers here. So keep an eye. That strategy could be one that we see, but realistically speaking, probably everyone comes in at right about halfway around lap 18 or so.
We have seen fuel mileage races at Watkins Glen in the real world before. Maybe we shouldn't be surprised if we end up with one tonight. But in any case, let's bring you the starting grid for tonight's round of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series. Race number 3, round number 2. Brian Lockwood, your pole sitter, with a fast time of 1 minute and 12.129 seconds to take the top spot. So Lockwood will be your pole sitter ahead of Cody Bias. Starts second. Derek Bordeaux, Adam Gillen, and Donovan Strauss there in the top 5, and Casey Tucker starting in 6th.
Then you have the drivers behind them. Oh, go ahead, just.
Oh, going down the rest of the order is Colin Keister sitting to the inside of row 4, Logan Helton to the outside of that row. Brandon McKissick and Will Norton are going to share row 5, and Jose Solis Jr. and Garrett Conrad round out the top 12, Kenneth.
Then go back to 13. Find Benjamin W. Nelson and Ethan Lane to row 7 with Justin Nasir, Colin Bowden for Space Station Gaming on the outside of row 8. Before you'll find Eddie Kerner, Max Brady for High Performance Motorsports all the way through P18.
Starting in 19th, a familiar face, the social media man himself, Spencer E. Burns in 19th, Drew Farinage in 20th, Brendan Kohler in 21st, Michael Finlayson starts 22nd. He's without his teammate, Brian LaPrade, who's in a different split for the first time in round 2. Mitchell Hunt in 23rd, Blake McCandless 24th, rounds out the first 12 rows.
Aaron Rodgers, Christian Budd back here, Nick Morse and Brian Blackford also starting deep in the field, as is Dalton Collins and Tamu Choika, who completes the top 30. Santiago Tires, Austin Yarbrough, and Brandon Kittel complete our 33 driver field. The last 4 drivers in this particular race did not set a qualifying time, so they will have to start from the back. The air temperature here in Sim is 80 degrees Fahrenheit, track temp 110 degrees, and winds headed to the southwest now at 5 miles an hour on this day, which in Sim is July 24th, 2021. So a little bit further back in the calendar, almost 2 Saturdays ago. It is just after 3 p.m. local time in Sim, so it's going to be decently slick. You're going to have this track bathed in full sunlight for the duration of this race, and the biggest question I think Jeff Piccone will come down to A, who ends up trying to pull off some sort of pit strategy and tries to one-stop this, and B, who leads the group of the drivers that will run on that standard 2-stop strategy.
Well, the strategy tonight is going to be a one-stop. I would be very shocked if people pit twice. This race is only 35 laps, which is not all that many. This race is going to be over in about 45 minutes or so. No cautions, so realistically, everyone's going to pit once at lap 18. Now, you can no-stop it, keep those tires out there, but it's a little bit more difficult to do. So we'll have to see. Maybe some people will pull the strategy out. I'm going to be keeping my eyes on some of these drivers throughout the field, though, that have had these strong runs at one-off tracks.
As these drivers get set to go road course racing for the first and only time at the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. For late-breaking stories from pit road, let's head down for the first time to our Justin Prince.
Yes, indeed, and one of the drivers to keep an eye on, Donovan Strauss. He has been working with his fellow compadre Vicente Salwas, who competes in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series, on his road course skills. Has put a lot of time and effort into this race, trying different spring packages and trying to get some experience around the racetrack. But the thing that was emphasized by Donovan was trying to get track position early, especially with dirty air being a potential factor for these drivers tonight. Keep that in mind for some of the strategy calls and some of the position battles you see around the circuit this evening.
Waiting for this field of 33 trucks to come down towards the front straight and get us underway for another night of eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series action. Our race here on twitch.tv/Podium Esports. The other race with Sean Butler, Kevin McAdams and company over on twitch.tv/Podium 2. We have wall-to-wall coverage, but we're glad you're with us either way as we get set for the green flag as Barney the Flag Man waves it across the field, and we are underway with the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series at Watkins Glen. So Brian Lockwood, fastest man out the gate and first across the line on lap number 1. Not a surprise here. He's got the highest road I rating in this field. And even though, technically speaking, this is an oval series, we do have data on IR for the road side of things. For every single driver in the field, Lockwood clocking in with a 7.4K road IR, which in turn, Kenneth, makes plenty of sense as to why he's up at the front and now out ahead of Cody Bias to the tune of almost 1 second.
It's probably the easiest consideration to make there, James. High IR means you're a pretty good road course racer, and you said at the top of the show a lot of drivers came into this race not knowing who were going to be the heavy hitters on the road courses going left and right, because you only had a couple guys who may have had some road experience, but everybody's usually just the best on the ovals and not really specialized in road courses like what we saw with guys like Mitchell DeYoung last season. But already Brian Lockwood already on a tear, because he's already been able to gap everybody, and it seems as though the entire field is pretty much single file. Kind of imagine that the first corner must have been chaotic, but everybody has kept it clean.
Definitely chaotic. A few incidents in the back already. Dalton Collins, Mitchell Hunt, and Austin Yarborough already in some form of trouble. And Yarborough and Hunt have called it quits already on the evening, as Hunt, I think, just got loose up in the S's and collected both Collins and Yarborough. So what was a race of 33 drivers now effectively already down to 30 as Lockwood continues to stretch it out on bias. It's now a 1.2 second gap as we go on board with Donovan Strauss.
And Strauss trying to chase down Derek Bordeaux. But on that topic of the incidents, James, here on road courses on iRacing, only admin cautions can be called. And, well, we're in an official race here on iRacing. Road to Pro is an official series, which means we do not have live admins, which means no full course cautions will be called. So if you get any sort of damage or get in any sort of crash, you can spell your race done, because you will not get a caution to help you go into pit road, get those repairs done, and not lose too much time on the track. You're going to lose a tremendous amount of time, especially if you need to tow back to the pits.
Ooh, Donovan Strauss nearly got crossed up in the final corner. I saw the rear end of that Nutrient Ag Solutions Toyota Tundra step out from underneath, and then the man out of Marietta, Georgia had to catch it ever so slightly to make sure he didn't end up as trouble. As we go a little bit further back, this is Ethan Lane working to the outside of Garrett Conrad.
I think if you're going to see any of these moves, it has to be around turn one of the final corners. And I saw Ethan Lane a little bit under pressure there from Logan Helton, got the pass completed. Now there goes Garrett Conrad on his way to get around Ethan Lane. You don't really want to make passes here, James, around the bus stop, around the carousel, because that can get very risky just depending on the way you can swing this truck around these corners, especially at this bus stop here as you ride on board with Max Brady. You do not want to be side by side and end up in the grass, end up in the gravel, or worse, end up in a barrier to end your race. So you'd rather make the moves where there's hard braking zones. Right there where Donovan Strauss is, coming to the entrance of turn 6, that's a hard braking zone. You can use that inside there, be able to push the bumpers a little bit, get the move, and set up to turn 7. And then, of course, turn 1 is turn 1, so you have to make it stick nonetheless.
The inner loop, I think, offers more risk and reward potential than any other place on this circuit, Jeff McConey, because you've got the long back straightaway that you come down, and then if you hit it right, you can get to somebody's inside and outbrake them pretty easily, but that track narrows up considerably as you go through the inner loop. Makes it very easy to run over each other and bang doors or wheels or fenders and send somebody flying either into the sand or into the fence. More so than just about any other corner on this circuit. So it's an interesting one, I think, and I'll be curious to see how the field navigates that part of the racetrack as this race progresses.
There's so many different ways to hit the bus stop. I've seen braking points this week all the way as far up as the 1 and the 2 on the side. Those are the brake markers. There's 4 of them. And I've seen braking as early as the 4. I've seen braking as late as the 2, even the 1. So you can really send it in there hard and get on the brakes hard. Problem is you're going to chew up the tires doing that, and there's a risk the truck will snap loose all of a sudden on you when you just jam on the brakes like that. Another early incident, though, happened early on as Joshua Lee was talking, though, about not having cautions. Coming out of the S's there, Mitchell Hunt with High Performance Motorsports caught the grass at the top, and that truck just went around into the wall. A lot of damage there. And then Austin Yarborough, trying to avoid him, ended up spinning, and Dalton Collins was collected in that as well. That's 3 trucks on lap 2 that were all taken out, immediately destroyed, and they've all disconnected and are gone. The only one that's still in the race at the moment waiting on repairs is Dalton Collins, but he may not even finish them by the time the race is over. He might only get 3-4 more laps in at this rate.
Because this is going to be a shorter race since we don't have as many cautions and don't have as many laps. This could be one of the shortest, if not the shortest race in the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series season. So These drivers not really going to be at it for that long this evening. We could be done here potentially by the top of the hour if everything pans out the right way. But we'll wait and we'll see how chaotic or not this race gets as we go a little bit further back in the field and see some good battles right around the 11th position. As you see everybody jumping a little bit further up through the field, but big pack here with Logan Helton, Ethan Lane, Garrett Conrath, who's been making moves, Justin Nasir, and Benjamin Nelson too, who's been around. And Jeff McConey, you've watched Ben Nelson for a long, long while. He's someone who's been around the scene for a long time and has been pretty ever-present at this level of sim racing. Been in the qualifying series, the contender series, consistently over the last few seasons.
I also just really like his paint scheme. I just really like the paint scheme as well. But yeah, Benjamin Nelson, he's a strong driver. He really had a strong run at Knoxville. And he hasn't gotten much coverage, much attention so far this year, but he's had some really strong runs. It's just that when things go well, they go great, but when it rains, it pours for that truck. So right now, he's cruising right around in 15th. He was giving a lot, racing his give and take. He was giving a lot early on. Gave 2 spots because he got a little bit loose at the top of the S's, didn't push the issue. But keep an eye out for Ben Nelson because he could put together a solid run here. This is a difficult track and he could find his way around. He's right behind this battle that's forming up here though between Jose Salas and Logan Helton. Right now, Helton just dropped a spot. He's down 3-4 spots from where he started. But coming into this race, he was not really looking forward to it, Logan Helton. But overall, to qualify in the top 10, get a good solid top 15, that could be a good night for that 63.
Could be if he can get it back together. Meanwhile, there's Donovan Strauss to the inside of Derek Bordeaux, and Bordeaux just let Strauss go early on in this race, going at a 1. So move Donovan Strauss up to the 4th position, Bordeaux back to 5th. I think you've got some space amongst this field until you get to about the group that Jeff McConey was talking about, Josh Lee, where you've got Ethan Lane, Logan Helton, and Nasir, all the folks that we talked about just a few moments ago. Still in a pretty good battle. And then you've also got Colin Bowden leading a pretty good charge up the S's and a good battle for some spots back there as well.
And Garrett Conrath, who was in this fight there in 16th in the number 4 machine, he just sent it into the grass off of the carousel. He got a little bit loose coming off of that corner and overcorrected right into the grass. He lost a good bit of time, not too much. He only started back in 12th, or started back up in 4th, excuse me. But he is currently falling down the order just a little bit, but he still has a lot of time to get back up through the field, sitting there in 16th, especially with a good amount of cars around him. Is Adam Gilliland sitting there in 3rd. I'm noticing a bit of a trend. Cody Bias, Adam Gilliland in the top 5. Maybe these old school eNASCAR guys from the early days of the series, they might be having a bit of a resurgence here at the road course because it is so tough.
This is yet again another track that demands driver excellence. You cannot cheat your way into victory at Watkins Glen, and that goes back to the point that a lot of our team kind of made in pre-race about how Donovan Strauss has risen to the occasion at the toughest tracks that we've raced at on the schedule. So we look right on board with Drew Freenons a little bit further back in the field, but Strauss has been able to answer the call at every turn, and this is another one of those racetracks where you're going to want to step up and rise to the occasion, and it's going to take some skill in order to get this done right.
And you also have to keep in mind, for the case of Donovan, he was the Pro Contender Series last season. Unfortunately, was able to make it all the way to the high rank in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, but to be relegated to be that close to Coke Series competition and then miss out on it kind of gives you that fire underneath and gives you a little bit of a flame to go out there and perform. And that's exactly what we've seen out of Donovan Strauss so far this entire first and so far second round of this Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. He's been able to maneuver the dirt tracks. He's been able to maneuver the 1.5 milers, the short tracks, even tracks like Darlington, which demands so much out of every single driver, no matter what you put there car-wise. And for Donovan Strauss, that Elliott Sadler Esports driver has been on it, and it's no surprise to see that he's doing well here tonight.
For more information on Cody Bias in particular, let's go down to Justin Prince.
Yes, indeed. And for Cody Bias, for this race, he explained that it was fun to prepare for this event because it was surprising for him, as it was possibly the first time he's put this much effort into learning a road course like Watkins Glen. The biggest challenge was to learn how to manage the tires over the run. So far, he's right now feeling things out of the moment, according to his camp. They say it's too early to start handing it out in that truck at the moment. Currently holding on to second spot and breaking away from the rest of the pack.
As Bias continues to make his charge to go after Brian Lockwood, we are going to step aside for a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We'll go side by side so you don't miss a moment of the action as coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series from Watkins Glen International continues on Podium Esports. Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series from the virtual Watkins Glen International in Watkins Glen, New York. So we remind you to tune in Wednesday, August 18th at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time for the Wolf Pumps Truck Series Championship night as 8 drivers go for the title. Viewers will also have a chance to win diecast giveaways, gift cards, and more. Be sure to also look for the new Xfinity Series starting August 31st on twitch.tv/VolsFan88. Brian Lockwood continuing to lead this race. James White, the voice of Podium Esports, alongside Ken LaPueno, Josh Lee, Jeff McConey, and Justin Prince down on pit road with Ryan Bauer, our producer for the evening. Lockwood has been on cruise control from the get-go, up ahead of Cody Bias by about 4-ish seconds, but Derek Bordeaux still in a good fight here with Donovan Strauss. I think he let Strauss go a few laps ago, Josh Lee, but he hasn't let him get away.
No, he is not, and that's what he needs to do to try and keep up. And here at Watkins Glen, especially once we get into those pit stops, once we get into the full fields coming in, we're already seeing a handful of drivers start to sprinkle into the pits on strategy. Jeff McConey had a comment about that we can't repeat here on the broadcast. But anyways, going back to what I was saying about Adam Killen and Donovan Strauss and Derek Bordeaux, you can't let them get too far here at Watkins Glen, because once they pit, they are going to spread out throughout the field based on pit lane time and pit box time. So they need to keep them reeled in now, maybe try and make that move before they come into the pit lane, so they have them up as they go into the pit lane as more cars start to dive in from the back. This time, Will Norton in the 7.
Will Norton making moves, and Jeff McConey as some of these drivers come down pit road. What can you say on the broadcast about this potentially 2-stop strategy or early end of the 1-stop window strat?
So what these drivers that are coming in now are doing is they're taking fuel only, and they are at this point sacrificing their chance at taking a stop at halfway, staying on that typical strategy, and are instead taking fuel, and they will not take tires later on. So if you're Lockwood, Bias, Gilliland, Strauss, and you can race up there towards the front, your strategy will be pit at halfway, take your 4 tires, and get back out there. Right now, we're seeing about a second of fall off already on the tires, if not more, second and a half. So a lot of drivers are coming in now. They'll make their pit stops for fuel and will not take tires throughout this race. So that's the difference in strategy. But if you're out front, stick to your strategy. You're trusting in the driver rather than the strategy to make something happen.
Justin Prince, what are you hearing from the teams that have already come down pit road for service?
And that's what they exactly said, what Jeff McConey iterated when it came to fuel only. They wanted to get clean air and prioritize that more than having fresher tires. So that team is looking to try and get that clean air. They say the handling is very solid right now, feeling good in their own bubble in the case of Michael Finlayson at the moment.
Also, note from the Fenn Racing camp, got a note here that says that he wanted clean air for the majority of this race more than fresh tires, which certainly is a gamble, but may end up paying off depending on how this does or doesn't shake out as you continue to get some great shots from Dougie Barrett of what has been a fantastic battle between Adam Gilliland and Donovan Strauss for the last few laps. But Strauss in particular has just been around a good fight for the whole of this race. Whether or not it's Derek Bordeaux or whether or not it's Adam Gilliland, he's been in the thick of something, Josh Lee, pretty much since we dropped the green flag.
And I think that's how he likes to race. I mean, we have seen Donovan Strauss be so dominant. We mentioned earlier in the broadcast, in the second split of Knoxville and Homestead, he got the win. Round 2 has been all about Donovan Strauss. A perfect score for him so far in the round. He's trying to keep that up, and it's going to be an uphill battle, but he's still looking for that third spot, that podium spot here from Adam Gilliland as they dive back into turn number 1. He's staying close, just can't get close enough to make a move. Maybe he doesn't want to make a move. Maybe he sees it as too risky here as the 10 car comes into the pit lane for service here close to midway through the race as we work lap 15.
Ethan Lane is in. Looks like Spencer Burns, I believe, is in. Nick Morse is in for service, as well as is Max Brady, as is Logan Helton. So a few more drivers coming in for service, and that leaves us with 12 of the 33 who have yet to come down pit road for at least one pit stop in some way, shape, or form. Plenty of gaps, though, between this group, so we'll stick right on this battle between Adam Gilliland and Donovan Strauss, which, for the moment, Jeff McConey is the best on track.
That it is. So right now they are having that battle. It's about 2/10 apart. Donovan Strauss has been just clicking off laps and consistent. He's been a little bit faster than Gilliland, but you really need to find something in order to get around someone else here on a road course. Passing is hard, especially when you're in dirty air. We're hearing a lot of complaints of that. And I would like to clarify, I said earlier that all the drivers were coming in that were just taking fuel. That was not necessarily true. What I was talking about explicitly was the drivers that were coming in and taking fuel were on a more aggressive strategy. The window is open to come in and take 4, but it just seems that the drivers that were coming in early are going to be taking just fuel early on, but some did take tires, so that is true. But the strategy right now for the more aggressive drivers is fuel only, and that is just almost a last-ditch effort of get out of the dirty air, get yourself to just run the track, click off laps, and get around here as fast as possible without worrying about that dirty air. Pit window is open, though, to take tires until the end. I think we're going to see Lockwood, Gilliland, Strauss, all these drivers coming in soon here. Looks like Strauss, though, is just coming off, so now this opens up the door to change things up.
So when does Lockwood come in? When does Bias come in? When does Gilliland come in? When do your leaders come in? How about for Brian Lockwood? He'll stay out on the racetrack in front of the lap. Bias looks like he's going to do the same here. No, here comes Cody Bias. Cody Bias in from second. It looked like he might stay out on the racetrack, but Bias in from second. Adam Gilliland in from third, and Casey Tucker stays out on the racetrack, so he'll assume the runner-up spot for the time being as Lockwood continues to lead.
And right now, James, at this point in this event where you're already halfway, you're getting to lap 35, this is most likely the final stop of this race for fuel and tires, and then you go all the way to the checkered flag. At this point, this is the process of switching back to either where your net position is or trying to gain from what you hit on pit road. We still haven't seen Brian Lockwood, your race leader. We haven't seen him hit pit road at all tonight, along with obviously those top 4 up to Team Mutoika and the 3 machine. So now you're just going to see everybody switch along back. The distance is going to start to take over. And then, of course, by the time your top leaders go down pit road, then it's all about switching back to where you were. And for Lockwood, I got to be eager to say that he most likely will retain the race lead off of the switch. But distance has been so key, and even one small mistake down pit road can set you back even 1, 2, maybe 3 positions.
Justin Prince, any more news from the teams on pit road?
As Lockwood comes down to the pit lane, Donovan Strauss made minor adjustments to his side of things. In fact, specifically from their camp, they put a post-it note on the grill for their machine, a little bit of tape translation on that. Overall, their goal, they just got to manage the tires better on this run. So that's the focal point for Donovan Strauss with this call.
Strauss little bit further back, currently running in the 10th spot, but here comes Brian Lockwood in, Casey Tucker is in, Ben Nelson is in. This is going to be all about Samuel Toyka, Blake McCandless, Brandon Cattell. Those three have yet to come in for service, and we'll also see where Strauss merges back into this compared to Brian Lockwood, as Derek Bordeaux and Strauss are together again. And look who's right behind him. Look at this big one to go 3 wide in turn 1 as Keister gets into the 04 of Strauss and moves him up the racetrack. And Donovan Strauss is going to clear both of them and take over the 6th position in what was unquestionably the wildest moment we've had up to now in this race, Josh Lee.
That was a risky move. It worked out, but not for the driver that attempted the move. It worked out for Donovan Strauss. He was able to keep his spots here on the racetrack, but Colin Keister goes right back to the 3rd car in line. Take a look at that dive to the bottom. The 33 tried to get on the brakes, and he did. He just couldn't get it stopped in time, and then faded right back into line. He goes for another move in the carousel. He moves Derek Bordeaux out of the way, gives 7th spot over to the 33 of Colin Keister. This number 33 machine is aggressive out here on the racetrack as he drives the race for a top 5. Bordeaux now loose into the braking zone of 6. The 25 of Will Norton gets around.
Derek Bordeaux cannot catch a break at this moment. Norton to the inside. Here comes Casey Tucker to the inside of the 04 as Bordeaux is going to down. He's on older tires than everybody else in this group. That might explain part of why he's struggling for pace as it stands, but we're waiting on Team Mutoika and Blake McCandless. Those are the last 2 have yet to come in for service, Chef Riccone. So if you're staying out this late, what's your game plan? What's your idea?
Well, if you're waiting for Blake McCandless to pit, don't hold your breath. He's already clutching it, and I think he's going to try and make it all the way to the end here on lap 19. He's keeping this thing as basically the highest gear he can. He's putting the clutch in. He's going to try and make it all the way to the end without pitting. I said it would be a risky, bold move for anyone to try it, but here we are. Blake McCandless is going to go for it. Right now, he's sitting 4th, though, so it's not going to get him the win, but it will get him a better finishing spot.
If he can maintain the track position, it's a big move for Blake McCandless, who started 24th in this field, currently up to 4th. He'll probably lose a few more spots, but the net gain is certainly sitting there waiting for him. Same for Teemu Toyka. If Toyka can hang out and run this the whole way, but Toyka will come in, so McCandless may be the only driver trying to run this race all the way on 1 tank of fuel. We'll be back with more coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series from the virtual Watkins Glen International just after this here on Podium Esports. When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. There's a reason that Makoni Setup Shop is trusted by more virtual and real-world tracks and companies than any other setup shop in iRacing. With partners such as Stafford Motor Speedway, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, Five Flag Speedway, Speed 51, and more. When you want something done right, you go to the experts at Makoni Setup Shop.
With setups available for most series on both asphalt and dirt, built by a team of professional builders consisting of some of the top talents on the service, Makoni Setup Shop LLC has what you need to hit the track with confidence. Head over to MakoniSetupShop.com and learn why Makoni Setup Shop is the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports and is partnered with some of the largest names in virtual and real racing.
And remember, at Makoni Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series. A quick replay here while we were in break contact between Brandon McKissick and Logan Helton as McKissick goes around and sideways and just looped it himself a little bit and then tried to gas it up, and Logan Helton nearly ran him over and had to go hard right into the sand trap to make sure he didn't run right into the 13. So not too much damage, but Helton loses the track position, now running 23rd after starting 8th. As we have crossed the halfway point of tonight's race, time to bring you our iRacing Midway Race Break, which as always is brought to you by iRacing, the worldwide leader in motorsports simulations. The iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport. Virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the world of outlaws, and more. Brian Lockwood, your race leader, ahead of Cody Bias. Adam Gillen currently holding the 3rd spot. Donovan Strauss in 4th. Colin Keister completes the top 5. Blake McCandless appears to be the only driver running on the no pit strategy. He started 24th. He currently runs 7th, as Derek Bordeaux will make the pass around McCandless to gain that spot. Will Norton holds the 8th position. 9th belongs to Casey Tucker. And Ethan Lane completes the top 10 midway through this race.
Back to 11th, you'll find Eddie Ball, Eddie Kerner in the 5 machine to P11, with Justin Nasir right behind him, tailing in P12. Garrett Conrath will follow suit in 13th with Santiago Gutierrez. He's gone from 31st on the racetrack to 14th at halfway. Colin Bowden for Space Station Gaming, he'll line up the top 15, with Michael Finlayson in 16th. Brandon McKissick with that little mishap at the bus stop, he rebounds to 17th, with Brandon Kohler in 18th, Spencer Burns in 19th, and rounding out your top 20 so far will be Benjamin Nelson.
Right behind in 21st is Drew Farinage, Max Brady in 22nd, Logan Helton trying to rebound in 23rd. After that runoff he had in the bus stop, Brian Blackford sits in 24th with Timu Toika rounding out that top 25. It's Aaron Rodgers, Nicholas Morse, Brandon Cattell, Christian Budd, Jose Solis Jr., and Dalton Collins rounding out the drivers who are currently racing on the racetrack. 31 of them, Austin Yarborough, Mitchell Hunt, are out of this race. And a bit of a correction, Dalton Collins in the pit lane currently finishing repairs.
They continue to work their way around New York's Thunder Road. And for more information on how to start your iRacing career, log on to iRacing.com. With over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is your portal to the racing world. And that concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break, but not before we have a little bit of fun discussing some of the content that is upcoming in the September build. We've got Mount Washington's hill climb making its way for the road and maybe the more rallycross-oriented people in this in, but for the oval folks, the big addition that Dale Earnhardt Jr. revealed just last weekend, Hickory Motor Speedway, one of the most famous local short tracks in all of America, enters the fray in the September build of iRacing, and that's a place I think we're going to see a lot of use out of Jeff McCody, especially here at Podium Esports.
Oh, yes. Hickory, the Mount Washington hill climb. I'm a New Englander. I grew up in Massachusetts. I've driven up Mount Washington, which, let me tell you, as someone who doesn't like heights, is terrifying. Mount Washington, and there was a coastal road out in California, which is like a cliffside drop. Absolutely terrifying. I've never been more scared inside of an automobile, and I've driven actual cars, actual race cars. Never been more scared than driving up when those roads don't have a guardrail on the side. But I'm very excited to do it virtually, although I actually may not be able to do it because I race in VR, and it might actually scare me half to death. But right now, some interesting strategies forming. Blake McCandless says he's over-saving, which Justin Prince has more information on here in a second. But I've been doing the math, and McCandless is running between 114 and 118, depending. Now, he needs a net gain to be past 24th. Now, Brian Blackford is the driver in 24th with a 114.369 as his last lap. So Blake McCandless right now is about 16 seconds ahead, which means over the next 11 laps, he needs to run in roughly the 115 range in order to be all right. He needs to run below 115. That last lap he just did was a 115.0 on the dot, so it's gonna be close, but he could make it work here depending, and it could be a slight net gain.
Could potentially be. Could potentially be. Justin Prince, what do you have from pit road?
And keep in mind, like McCandless said on his stream, that he's not nervous. I've got nothing to lose. I'm just chilling. He also did the strategy, he said, because he can get the benefits of draft, but also not the negatives of dirty air. To emphasize the over-saving he mentioned, drivers he expected to potentially stretch to 37 laps. He actually tested this out, he mentioned, in C Opens as well to be able to commit to this strategy. And oh, by the way, he also said it gives you guys something to talk about.
I suppose it does. I suppose it does. We'll take a quick break here one more time before we go green flag the rest of the way on our coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series from the virtual Watkins Glen International on Podium Esports. Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series of the virtual Watkins Glen International. James Pike, Kenneth Widow, Josh Lee, Jeff McConey here in the booth with Justin Prince down on pit road and Ryan Bauer in the production trailer. Brian Lockwood has been in control of this race from the drop of the green flag. No change to that yet. As we remind you that tonight's broadcast is brought to you by McConey Setup Shop, your home for iRacing setups and the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports. From Legends to Cup cars, they have you covered with dirt setups available for late models, modifieds, and wing sprint cars, and road setups available for F3, LP2, and GT4 cars as well. Coaching with professional drivers such as Zach Novak, Jimmy Mullis, River Hayes, and more is available at their website for just $25 per hour. And at McConey Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories. The newest book, How I Drive, featuring a foreword by NASCAR Cup Series driver Anthony Alfredo, is now available. You can visit their website at McConeySetupShop.com for more information. Brian Lockwood out in front, Bias in second, those two in their own zip code, but Donovan Strauss beginning to reel in Adam Gillen, Kenneth Bueno, and we may end up with yet another good battle for P3 like we've seen for the vast majority of this evening so far.
And we saw it in the half of this race where Strauss was just trying to be patient, trying to make a move on the driver in front, Adam Gilliland, but still failed, and that was just before pit stops were happening. And I was going to reiterate what Josh Lee said a little bit earlier in the fact that you kind of wanted to gain position before you went down pit road, but because Strauss wasn't able to make that move, he didn't want to push too much. He eventually went down, but this is going to be the money move right here with 8 laps to go. Still a very long way to go, and Donovan Strauss out of the top 3. He is one of the fastest. He was actually the fastest out of the entire top 5 that last time by, so no doubt about it. Donovan Strauss is quick, and if we can get to Adam Gilliland, and Gilliland is going to start to feel that pressure, going to start to feel Strauss breathing on his neck, especially in turn 1 where Strauss has been very quick.
He was 3 tenths faster that last time by, and it looks like he might be another few tenths faster this time by as well. In what is one of the best battles on the racetrack, you've got Justin Nasir trying to run down Blake McCandless, Garrett Conrad there too, a little bit further back, but it's that trio and then this duo that you see on your screens that are the closest drivers on this track at the moment.
And they race back through turn number 6. Strauss needs to play this game slowly. He only has 7 laps to get this pass done, and he really only has 2 options that are good for passing without making it more of a challenge. Turn 1's relatively easy if you get a good run coming off of turn 7, and honestly, I think his best opportunity to try and pass Adam Gilliland entering into the bus stop. We heard Jeff McConey talk about during the open that going down into that braking zone, he's seen braking zones back at the 4 sign on the left side of the guardrail, all the way down to the 2nd braking zone sign, and maybe even the 1. If Donovan Strauss can outbrake Adam Gilliland going into the bus stop, he might be able to peek that nose to the bottom and get that spot as we take a look at a whole host of trucks racing up the hill. It's Nasir, it's Conrad, it's Kirez, it's McCandless, and they all go by Blake McCandless as he falls to 14th now.
So McCandless dropping further down the order, 14th after starting this run as everybody else came down pit road in the 4th position and continuing to fall. But if he finishes ahead of 24th, it will have been a worthwhile strategy in the end. He said himself he's got nothing to lose, so no shocker there. So right on board with Donovan Strauss, remind you all that you can sign up for the Retro 500 on the Podium Esports website at podiumesports.com/Retro 500, the tribute to the Winston Cup era of stock car racing that utilizes the 1987 Chevrolet Monte Carlo and Ford Thunderbird at Darlington Raceway. 3 more qualifying races to run throughout August for drivers to earn their place in the 367-lap, 500-mile feature race on the evening of Labor Day proper, with $500 going to the winner of the big show. All races broadcast, of course, on the Podium Esports Twitch channel, and it's just one of the events coming up in the world of Podium Esports throughout the next week. Sunday night, it's the Cinemax Cup Series powered by MPI, going 100% distance at the Kansas Speedway. 267 laps of action coming your way at 9:15 p.m. Eastern on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. Then Monday Night Racing closes out the round of 10 in Season 3 using the Porsche 911 RSRs and the Roval at Homestead Miami Speedway. Pre-race starts at 7:45 p.m. Eastern this Monday on twitch.tv/Podium2. Operation eMotorsport will tackle Laguna Seca on Tuesday night. It's on their YouTube channel at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then the second qualifying race for the Retro 500 using the 1987 stock cars at Darlington Raceway will come your way next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. And again, you can visit the Podium Esports website to register for that race if you are so inclined. The eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series is at Michigan International Speedway to close out their regular season next Tuesday night, August 17th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And then we're back on air with the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series from Rockingham with coverage on the Podium Esports Twitch channel and the Podium 2 Twitch channel at 9 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, August 19th. Continuing to watch this battle between Gillen and Strauss, as Strauss continues to be just a hair faster, but he hasn't been able to close it on the rear bumper of Gillen's machine yet. And still, we're waiting to see whether or not there's a better battle that brews, not only between them, but between some of the other drivers on the racetrack. Just as I go down the running order, you've got Gareth Conrath and Santiago Tires in a good one, and Blake McCandless is right there with them. You've also got Colin Bowden and Brandon McKissick in a good battle. Spencer Burns, Michael Finlayson, Ben Nelson back there. Everybody through about maybe 11th or 12th on back to 20th, Jeff McConey, fighting out and still with battles to be settled for the final finishing positions in this race.
Absolutely. Still a lot of positions that can be gained or lost so far in this race. About 4 laps to go. But I'll tell you what, someone that isn't worried about battles or anything else, Brian Lockwood. He just sent his spotter over to the Twitch channel right here on Podium Esports and sent over a message to me saying, hey, we're getting ready for this post-race interview. Just tell us where we need to be for it. He's pretty much locked in mentally saying, I'm going to win this race. So unless something crazy happens, Brian Lockwood is already feeling pretty good about locking this one up. I'll tell you what, that is some next level confidence. Sending someone over to ask where you need to be for the post-race interview. That's like keying up the microphone during a race and saying, hey, I want to sign with my name up and in victory lane here when this race gets over out at lap 100 of the Daytona 500. That's impressive.
He also has a 15-second gap on the rest of the field. I think the largest gap between drivers anywhere else in this race is about 4 seconds between Colin Keister and Casey Tucker. If you want to quantify and get a sense of just how dominant Brian Lockwood has been, as Garrett Conrath is in a good battle, and Southie Tires, I think, used the bumper to move Conrath out of the way and take over the 12th position, at least for the time being. But Conrath's still there on the inside as they work their way back towards the pit straight.
And it's been an impressive run for Santiago Tires so far. I mentioned it at halfway that he started 31st in this race. Don't believe he really took a time in qualifying when we went to the starting grid. So to see him run within the top 12 and have some sprinkles in the top 10 as he continues to Aaron Conrath to turn 1, it has been just impressive out of the 4 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver. He wads it up in turn 1 just a little bit, and now here comes Conrath to attack back at the S's. Got to think if they continue to go like this, it only leaves the whole strategy for Blake McCandless to continue to pan out the way he wants it as Tires tries to hound once again as they head for the bus stop.
About to say that this probably helps out Blake McCandless as Tires just locked up the right front on the entry into turn 1 that last time by. It was ever so slight, but I saw just enough smoke off that to indicate that's exactly what happened. And Tires continuing to work over these bumps and get to the inside of Conrath in the carousel and try and take over that 12th spot outright, which he'll do here. But Conrath is going to try to cross him up, but crossed himself up, got loose on corner exit, and now Blake McCandless, of all people you would expect to get a run on Garrett Conrath. McCandless with the strategy that he's running, not necessarily the one you'd have pinned down to try and make a run at the number 9 at this stage, Josh Lee.
No, not at all. Blake McCandless is doing an amazing job right now on his strategies. We go on board Brandon McKissick. Looked like a little bit of a lockup from Colin Bowden, or maybe some contact between these two. They'll go side by side down into turn number 1. It's McKissick on the inside with that advantage as they go through the right-hander. And into the corner they go. And Colin Bowden trying to hold steady on that outside line. They have Spencer Burns behind him. They have Blake McCandless in front of him. They stay side by side as they race up the hill, maybe making a little bit of contact and door banging. McKissick way off the pace now. Right on by goes Spencer Burns. Here comes Michael Finlayson now to make a move as they go into the bus stop. Still side by side. Can Finlayson pull him in the braking zone? He does exactly that. McKissick falls to 18th, right in front of Benjamin Nelson here on the final lap.
Maybe there was some contact. There was definitely contact between Colin Bowden and Brandon McKissick in the S's, and McKissick has just been the ping pong all night. Remember, he had that incident in the inner loop earlier as Brian Lockwood is already down the back straightaway on his last lap as Cody Bias now runs up the S's, but Lockwood has been all in his own zip code tonight. The driver who ran in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup, the driver with the highest road I rating, has made quick work of this night at Watkins Glen, and he will rumble through the carousel and stretch out his lead even more. It is 16 seconds that he has on Cody Bias, and he will take this big points night for him and the A51 team. Aaron Rodgers and company going to be very excited to see Lockwood bring it home in New York State as he works his way through the final pair of corners. Brian Lockwood will come out in the last corner, thunder down the front straightaway, come right underneath Barney the flag lands, flag stand, do the nice little run up along the pit wall and win this race in the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series from Watkins Glen as we wait to see how the rest of these battles pan out. Donovan Strauss with one more shot to try and get out of Golan, but he won't get there, so Strauss will have to settle for 4th. Meanwhile, they are still brawling around Spencer Burns, Colin Bowden and company.
What a job it was for Brian Lockwood as everybody just continues to duel for positions within the top 15. Remember, these are crucial points going into Rockingham within a couple weeks' time as you see Colin Bowden now under fire. There goes Michael Finlayson underneath. He's going to make the pass and at least capture P17 before this is all said and done. As Finlayson goes underneath the 24 Space Station Gaming machine, he'll take the position as they head all the way to the start-finish line. But what a quick race this was, though. All about strategy. Everybody, though, still close for position tonight.
But he coming across the line here, waiting for the last few drivers to complete proceedings as Brian Blackford comes down across the start-finish line, as does Brandon Cattell, as is Aaron Rodgers, who was racing in this event, and also Happy Team Owner with the victory, and Nick Morse as well. But the night belongs to Brian Lockwood out of Tallahassee, Florida, who provides us with tonight's Martin Sports Winning Moment, which is brought to you by Martin Sports. Just tries to produce the best custom apparel for your needs, whether it's shirts for your office, jerseys for a local sports team, or specially designed apparel for your sim racing group. Martin Sports has you covered. They also offer gloves specifically designed for sim racing that are lightweight, breathable, and complete with padded leather palms. And visit the website at martinsports906.com for more information. No doubt who was best as Brian Lockwood finally blows the motor up, and I guess maybe we'll let somebody else have a chance to try and catch him, but we'll have the opportunity to catch up with our race winner and our podium finishers on the other side of this break. You're watching coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series from iRacing's virtual Watkins Glen International on Podium Esports. When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. There's a reason that Makoni Setup Shop is trusted by more virtual and real-world tracks and companies than any other setup shop in iRacing. With partners such as Stafford Motor Speedway, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, Five Flags Speedway, Speed 51, and more. When you want something done right, you go to the experts at McCody Setup Shop.
With setups available for most series on both asphalt and dirt, built by a team of professional builders consisting of some of the top talents on the service, McCody Setup Shop LLC has what you need to hit the track with confidence. Head over to McConeySetupShop.com and learn why McConey Setup Shop is the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports and is partnered with some of the largest names in virtual and real racing.
And remember, at McConey Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series, where Brian Lockwood is your winner by almost 16 seconds over Cody Bias. It's the largest margin of victory we've had in any of the races in this series all season long. Adam Yolen completed the podium this evening. Donovan Strauss was fourth for Elliott Sadler Esports. Fifth place went to Colin Keister for Space Station Gaming. Casey Tucker holds P6. Seventh went to Derek Bordeaux. Will Norton finished in the 8th position. Ninth is where you'll find Ethan Lane, and Eddie Kerner completed the top 10. Nice run for the driver out of Illinois, Josh Lee.
Justin Nasir are going to finish in 11th. It's Santiago Tires that comes home in 12th with Garrett Conrath, Blake McCandless, and Spencer Burns rounding out that top 15. A good finish from McCandless after not taking a single pit stop throughout this entire race. Michael Finlayson, Colin Bowden, Brandon McKissick, Brendan Kohler, and Drew Farinarge rounding out that top 20, Kenneth.
Then back to 21st on back, you'll see Tumu Toyko, one of the last drivers to pit on that stint. He ends up in 21st with Logan Helton behind him in P22. Then on to Benjamin Nelson, Max Brady, and Brian Blackford to your top 25. Before you find Brandon Cantell, who started from 33rd to 26th. Aaron Rodgers, who goes to 27th. Nicholas Morse will be in 28th with Christian Budd in 29th. Jose Salas Jr. Bit of connection issues throughout this race. He ends up in the top 30, and you see the final 3 drivers to finish this race. More 30 laps down. Dalton Collins, Mitchell Hunt, and Austin Yarborough with unfortunate nights.
There's your 33 truck field for this race, and we now bring up Brian Lockwood, who had an easy go of it. So, Brian, simple question for you. How do these trucks compare to the Porsches that you ran in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup earlier in the year? And how much is it a transition from running those cars to the truck that you won with tonight?
Well, I think the Porsche is actually really good training for this car. I mean, this car has a lot of traits that make it act like a heavier Porsche. So, you know, a little bit more power, a little bit more throttle control, but overall, I think similar techniques. So the transition wasn't too difficult. I was a lot more worried about the setup. And that aspect is a lot more in depth than anything I've really worked with before. So I'm really, really happy we could come out and have a good day.
Any major challenges in this race? Anything that was difficult for you in this? Or was this just you leaning on the road experience to clean house and walk away with the victory?
Well, qualifying was a bit of a tough one for everybody, I think. There's something going on with the weather that made, at least for me, made the car a little bit unpredictable, difficult to handle. And I actually did make a couple mistakes in my key lap, small mistakes, but I was worried about getting stuck in dirty air, but I think a lot of the other guys struggled with the weather as well, so I got lucky.
You get lucky. How's this help you, especially in your points battle? You get the boost for the victory. Can you carry the momentum through to the final handful of races in this season, you think?
Yeah, well, hope so. I had a really difficult first couple of races of round 2, but you know, this gets me back in the game. So we're just gonna take it race by race, try and keep learning, keep improving the setups, and we'll see what happens.
Well, Brian, congratulations on your victory to you and everybody at A51. Thanks for the time, and we'll see you at Rockingham in 2 weeks' time.
See you then.
Brian Lockwood, your race winner this evening in our race here on Podium Esports. We turn it now to Cody Bias, who finished in P2.
Here with Cody Bias, who's one of 4 drivers in this field who finishes this race exactly where they started. Bias P2 to start on the grid, P2 to end this race. And exactly with the way that the point situations have gone and the fact that this track is an oddball, I gotta imagine that this race, as being a very strung out one for you, gotta imagine that had to have been probably the best case scenario for you at a track like Watkins Glen, no?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was like I was telling Donnie and Brian, man, I was just in my own little bubble for majority of the race. It was kind of nice. I mean, like I said, looking at the schedule coming in around 2, I knew Watkins Glen I was going to need to put a lot of effort into it to find any type of pace and put a lot of emphasis in qualifying. The dirty air was pretty brutal out there, so it was all about track position, and starting up front was a good way to start off. And like I said, that little space we were in really made it I wouldn't say an easy race, but at least a less stressful race.
Definitely the less stressful race out of what has been a lot of chaotic ones here in the Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. But here at this track, of course, this race with no cautions, naturally, with it being official session and no yellows are going to be thrown, it was all based on strategy for you. Were there any sort of difficulties or any sort of kind of pondering on where you were going to pit, when you were going to pit, and how you were going to stack up when you got out of pit road, especially?
There was a little bit going into the race. My crew chief, Jared Liebert, did a great job on pitting me to where he knew I would come out into a nice space on track and I wouldn't be stuck behind slower traffic, and that was really key. I mean, I was able to maintain my track position with Adam and Donnie behind me, and with that call he made the pit, I think around like lap 15 or 16 there, ended up being a pretty good call.
Well, going into this race, especially reaching out from the first couple of races in Homestead Miami Speedway, most notably in round 2, you end up in P3 in points. Very good buffer going into Rockingham next week. Is there any sort of plan that you're going to carry through Rockingham, then Texas, and then 2 short tracks to end it at Bristol and Phoenix within the next couple of weeks?
We're going to go into Rockingham and prepare probably similar to Watkins Glen. Last year I didn't run too well at Rockingham, so it's probably one of the weaker tracks for me. But seeing that we've started off round 2 with three top 5s, I mean, that's a good little buffer there. But I still think we need about 1 or 2 more good finishes to really lock ourselves in for the Pro Series. So we're just gonna go in there, same mindset each and every week, just try to get the best finish we can, and hopefully come out with another good points day.
It was certainly fun tonight. Know it's going to be a lot of fun when we go to Thunder Alley in the Rockingham Speedway in a couple of weeks' time. So, Cody, congratulations on the 2nd place finish tonight from the Glen. Of course, wishing you the best of luck, and thank you for joining us here in the booth tonight.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks again to everyone at Dead Zone and Jarrett Liebert for all the help this week. He was a big reason in this, and Duval Creative for the awesome-looking truck.
Cody Bias, finish second. Consistency out of the driver, the 15.
Won't complain about the strong points run as we now turn to Josh Lee, who's with our 3rd place finisher this evening, Adam Gilliland.
And the first time we're going to talk with Adam Gilliland since his win in round number 1 at the Martinsville Speedway. Adam, looking back at your eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series stats, Watkins Glen has been a bit of an up and down track for you. A 15th place finish in the last time we saw it in the series in 2016, of course, but before 2021. How confident were you coming into this round that you could walk away with some good points on the day at such a tricky track like Watkins Glen?
Yeah, I was definitely pretty confident when I saw it on the schedule. Watkins Glen out of all the road courses has typically been my best. Had a top 10 there in the Coke Series back in the day. So I was looking forward to it. If we were ever going to go to a road course, this was going to be the one I was going to have success at. Going into it was a different story. Obviously, I was really confident, and then practice this whole week has been kind of a struggle, to be honest. So, before qualifying, I was really expecting maybe a 15th to 20th place run, and lo and behold, qualified 4th, and was able to stay up there and finish 3rd.
And you came into this race 37th in points, an average finish of 20th with no laps led. What does this do for the confidence? Because you're on the outside looking in at that top 20 for the Contender Series. Rounds starting to run their way out. We have 4 left here at the conclusion of Watkins Glen. Does this good top 3 finish give you some confidence heading into the remainder of this season?
Confidence I'm not so sure of because it's so different than the rest of the tracks we're going to go to. But it's definitely, momentum, and hopefully, continue to build on this. The first 2 races, like you mentioned, haven't gone, as good as we wanted them to, but really, I've avoided a disaster up to this point. So I really like the remaining 4 races. Rockingham's really good for me, and looking forward to Bristol. So really, really happy to get out here with a 3rd tonight, considering how Knoxville went. That was the other wild card going into the season.
Thank you very much for joining us here in the booth, Adam. Congratulations on your 3rd place here from Watkins Glen.
Thanks, guys.
Driver for the team, Adam Gilliland, with a good 3rd place finish here, James Pike.
To 4th place we go. Donovan Strauss is with Jeff McConaughey.
Well, Donovan, you were having a strong run tonight. You were able to sort of get up to that back bumper of Adam Gilliland, but it seemed like as soon as anyone got to the back bumper of someone else, they really struggled to get around them. Was that just the dirty air, you couldn't get around, or was Adam Gilliland all of a sudden able to pick up the pace and hold you off there?
Yeah, the dirty air was rough this week, and it showed. But yeah, I mean, we were solid. I was like 0.3 faster than him, and then I got up to him, and it's just hard to pass. So, I was trying my hardest there. I was sweating and everything, but we'll take a 4th.
Now, this next race coming up is Rockingham. It's 200 laps. It's really going to be an endurance race. That is tough there. 300 miles for the Road to Pro Series, one of the longest races, if not the longest race. You've really succeeded and done well on those sort of oddball tracks, which I would consider Rockingham to be one. It drives unlike anything else. Very similar to Dover, with pretty much just a longer Dover, it seems sometimes, with the way it drives. You did well at Darlington and won there. All of these oddball tracks you've been able to do well at, are you expecting the same for Rockingham?
I think we'll be pretty good. I don't know how good we'll be, but I'm definitely excited to get back to our normal stuff and get on an oval again, because God, I was testing for 2 weeks nonstop for this race, and I'm just ready to go to Rockingham.
Well, I don't think you're the only one that's ready to move on and get back to the ovals here, but any other last thoughts before we take a little 2-week break and get ready for this next big race at Rockingham?
Yeah, can't thank everyone at Elliott Sadler Esports enough for all the hard work, especially Vicente. Vicente deserves a big shout out for this one, because he helped me with the setup and me driving. He helped me every time I was testing, even with him doing Coke stuff for the last 2 weeks, and I unbelievably cannot thank him enough for all of his help. I can't thank Nutrient Solutions enough for all their support and their partnership with me. Like, without them, I would just be racing this and I'd be trying my best, but with them on board, I'm trying a little harder, because I want to make them proud and make them worth something. So on the truck. So, yep.
That's awesome, and it seems like you've been doing very well so far. That deal with Nutrient Ag definitely seems to have lit a fire under you when you already had a big one going. So congratulations on it. Another great run here tonight. Best of luck to you in these upcoming weeks with some more testing, and we'll see you at the track at Rockingham.
Thank you, Jeff.
Your top 4 finishers there in this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series event at Watkins Glen. And we turn our attention away from Watkins Glen in just a few moments. But tonight, I think, was all about almost a lack of surprises that we saw. Seems like you go to these road course races and there's a greater gap in skill between the top end of the field and the back end of the field, and that's exactly what I think we saw tonight. Brian Lockwood was head and shoulders above everybody else. That's probably the most dominant win we're going to see this season. But 2 weeks from now, Rockingham, a little bit of a different story, because that may be the toughest of all the ovals available in iRacing. Jeff McConey, it will wear you down. It is bumpy, it is fast, it eats up tires. It is almost impossible to cheat your way to victory there. You're going to have maybe a little bit of luck, but mostly a lot of skill in order to be successful.
Well, I wouldn't say it's the most difficult or the worst track out there. I would leave that to Homestead, but a race that long, man, that is going to be tough on those drivers. 300 miles, 200 laps at Rockingham. Oh my gosh, we're going to have a long night up here in the booth, and if we're sitting up here sweating, then it is going to be insane behind the wheel for those drivers. It's going to be tough. You have to stay focused for that long. And like you mentioned, it's a tough track. It's bumpy. It's quick. And man, when things go wrong there, they go very wrong. Wrecks can be huge. And when you get caught up in a wreck in a place like that, any tiny bit of damage, especially on the trucks where it's all about momentum, can really, really hurt you. If you even bump the wall, you knock the toe out of place, you crinkle that fender, you're going to feel it. The winner at the end of the race, I can all but guarantee, this is one of my crystal ball predictions, the winner at the end of the race is going to have a perfectly clean truck that didn't touch anything else the entire night. Clip it, tweet it at me for the next 2 weeks. My guess is that whoever wins Rockingham is going to have the cleanest truck out there. Speed is secondary to keeping a clean truck.
Eric, grab that clip.
I was about to say, I have full faith that the internet will make sure that it does its job there to make sure you are held to your word. But Kenneth Bueno, I'm excited because, fun fact, Rockingham is also my favorite in all of iRacing. So I'll admit there's a little bit of personal bias there, but it's usually an entertaining track that puts on some good shows. We'll probably see lots of bumping, lots of banging, but I think regardless, it's going to be a show you're going to want to tune into, whether or not you're watching our broadcast on the main Podium Esports Twitch channel or the other race on twitch.tv/Podium2.
It's not only going to be a very big obstacle, Rockingham, as tough as that track is, it's going to be a very pivotal moment in round 2 of Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series, not just because it's Rockingham and that track can absolutely destroy the trucks if you play that track wrong. It's because we have somewhat of a short track stint within the next couple of races before we end this and before we get the drivers to the Road to Pro Contender iRacing series. We have Bristol Motor Speedway, we have Phoenix, of course we have Texas in there to sprinkle in the 1.5 milers, but it is 3 out of the 4 tracks that we're going to next are short tracks, very short venues. So you have to nail the setups as drivers. You have to be ready to be in that short track mindset, because if you don't play Rockingham correctly, then you might enter Bristol and Phoenix in the last races of this season in a very tough place and could probably put you kind of off your game for many. So Rockingham, not only is it going to be an important one driving wise, it's going to be an important one in the bigger picture altogether.
Interesting point there that we do have a lot of short tracks to round out this season, Josh Lee, and in that sense, this ends up becoming much like the original Truck Series schedules, when that series back in the day in the mid-1990s was essentially a glorified touring series where they ran some of the best short tracks in the country. We're sort of going to go back to that to figure out which 20 drivers would advance into the eNASCAR Road to Pro Contender Series.
And we would not see Rockingham on a eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series schedule unless it's an all-star race. So this really is truly special. I mean, Kenneth talked about it. Texas, Bristol, and Phoenix to round out the season. Not only 2 short tracks, but 3 completely different racetracks and how they race. And I'll throw Rockingham into the mix as well. 4 completely different racetracks, distinct to how they race. I think this round 2 calendar is really proving who is the most consistent across a variety of tracks. Right now, it's the Donovan Strauss. Ask me after Rockingham if I think it's still Donovan Strauss. I think it's going to be the way that number 51 has been racing, but who knows? This is a huge curveball like Knoxville was, like Watkins Glen was tonight. Strauss has done insanely well in both of those curveballs. Let's see if he can take a third.
All eyes are going to be on that number 51, who's been one of the most consistent performers all season long, and this is his redemption tour after he struggled in the Contender Series last year. This season has been all about not only getting back, but improving upon his performance in last year's Contender Series, and hopefully, at the end of it, locking up a bid in the Coke Series for 2022.
One last thing, though, to jump in with Rockingham and Bristol coming up, those setups are going to be very similar. I've had personal success there. You take a Bristol setup, change the gear, and you can take it to Rockingham. Both tracks are bumpy. They've got similar bankings. You can make one setup work with the other. So if one person does really well there, expect to see a very similar setup. Other tracks that come to mind where you can carry one setup to the other, Dover and Richmond. And who did well at both Dover and Richmond? Donovan Strauss with an oddball track. I really would not be surprised if he's done well. And again, we talked about how you need to keep the truck clean. Who was able to dodge incidents pretty much this entire series and dodged a huge one tonight with a dive bomb from Colin Keister and work his way around and come out 2 spots ahead? Donovan Strauss. So if he does well at Rockingham, you know he's going to carry that setup over to Bristol, and he's going to do just as well there if he's able to make it work. But whoever does well at Rockingham and nails that setup, they can carry it over to Bristol and do well.
Donovan Strauss also a winner at Darlington as well. And speaking of Darlington, you can log on to podiumesports.com/retro500 to get in on the action featuring the 1987 cars from Darlington Raceway. 3 more qualifying races coming your way before the feature race on Monday, September 6th. And we'll have coverage of the next qualifying race next Wednesday here on the Podium Esports Twitch channel. That'll go live at 9 p.m. Eastern Time and is one of many events that we have coming up in the next week in the world of Podium Esports. The Simax Cup Series powered by MPI heads to Kansas Speedway for a full-length 100% race. A little correction from earlier. That race, since it is going to be 267 laps, will start at 7 p.m. Eastern on the main Podium Esports Twitch channel this Sunday night. Then next Monday, the Monday Night Racing playoffs conclude the round of 10 with the Porsche 911 RSRs at the Roval at Homestead Miami Speedway. Our coverage starts at 7:45 p.m. next Monday on the Podium 2 Twitch channel, as well as the Podium YouTube and Facebook pages and the Monday Night Racing Twitter. Operation eMotorsport heads to Laguna Seca next Tuesday night, August 10th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Starting that broadcast on the Opmo YouTube channel, and then the aforementioned Retro 500 qualifying race number 2. $15 to enter if you head to podiumesports.com/retro500. You can sign up and get yourself a place today. The eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series is at Michigan next Tuesday. It'll be August 17th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And then we are back on air in 2 weeks' time with the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series from Rockingham Speedway. We'll have coverage of both races on the Podium Esports and Podium 2 Twitch channels at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Thursday, August 19th. Time for us to say goodbye from Watkins Glen International and another race in the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series. For everyone at Podium Esports, Gary Sexton, Cisco Scaramouza, John Theodore, for tonight's producer, Ryan Bauer, our camera builder, Dougie Beard, Justin Prince down on pit road, Eric Messer handling socials this evening, and for my colleagues in the booth, Kenneth Plano, Josh Lee, and Jeff McCody, I am James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching our broadcast of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series here on Podium Esports from iRacing's virtual Watkins Glen International. And we will see you from the Rock in 2 weeks' time at 9 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/Podium Esports and the Podium 2 Twitch channel. Congratulations to Brian Lockwood, our winner tonight at iRacing's virtual Watkins Glen.